Good evening. It is Tuesday, November 19th, 2024. I would like to call this regular school board meeting to order. Please stand for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, moving right along. Any changes, amendments, additions, or deletions to tonight's agenda?
No, sir.
Board, any changes? Superintendent?
The agenda was revised on 11/13/24 with the chair's permission to modify item 813 and items 814, and revised on 11/15 to add items 601 and 815. And I'm also pulling policy 2540 from tentative approval for tonight and to come back at a later date possibly.
All right, any objections to those changes?
Not at all, but Superintendent, I didn't know with me recusing myself from the Lake Sumter State, I didn't know if we needed to pull them. If I need to list those to be pulled for separate consideration for me to recuse myself since they're on the consent agenda. So it would be 10.01, 10.02, 10.03, and that's it.
Pull those for discussion.
Yes,
Understood.
we'll pull those.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, approval of the minutes. Superintendent, do you have your recommendation?
I recommend approval of the minutes from the regular school board meeting October 28th, 2024.
So moved.
Got a motion by Mr. Mathias and a second by Ms. Cunningham. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. All right, no representation tonight. I don't see any public input cards. Perfect, moving right along. Reports, item 6.01, Student Advisory Committee report.
And they had a prior commitment this evening, so they're not here.
All right, and then 6.02, Mr. Cole is not with us either, so no attorney report tonight. Doesn't look like we have any unfinished business. Item 8, the consent agenda. So we're pulling 10.01, 10.02, and 10.03 for discussion. Board, any other items to pull tonight from consent?
No, sir.
All right, Superintendent, you have a recommendation?
All right, I recommend approval of items 8.01 to 9.04, and then 10.04 to 10.07.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion by Mr. Mathias, a second by Dr. Luke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimous. All right, item 10.01. This is the 2025-2026 ACE to AA Academy Agreement between Lake Sumter State College and the School Board of Lake County, Florida.
All right, and just to reiterate, these items were pulled at the recommendation of our attorney, just so that Ms. Luke could recuse herself as an employee of Lake Sumter State College. So going back to item 10.01, I recommend approval of our ACE to AA Academy Agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Mr. Mathias, a second by Mrs. Cunningham. Any discussion on that item? All those in favor? Aye. Passes unanimous, 4-0 with Dr. Luke abstaining. Item 10.02, 2025-2026 Criminal Justice Early College Academy Agreement between Lake Sumter State College and the school board. Same as before, Dr. Luke is recusing herself on this one. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. Mathias, second by Mr. Dodd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes 4-0. 10.03, same thing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mathias, second by Mr. Dodd. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes 4-0. All right. Down to discussion, item 11.01, final approval for policy 0131, legislative policy making. This is a public hearing. Does anybody wish to give any public comment on this item tonight? Seeing none, I find it appropriate to close the public hearing. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
I recommend final approval, policy 0131.
So moved.
Second?
Got a motion by Mr. Mathias, second by Dr. Luke. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. And then item 11.02, tentative approval of policies 2215, program of instruction, 2271, articulation and access to Florida College System institutions, 2421, career and technical education, 2440, summer programs, 2460, exceptional student education, 5112, entrance requirements, 5130, withdrawal from school, 5225, absences for religious holidays, 5330.01, self-administered medication and epinephrine use, 5410, student progression, 5410.01, promotion, acceleration, placement, and retention, and 5420, reporting student progress. This is also a public hearing. Does anyone wish to give public opinion on any of these policies this evening? Seeing none, find it appropriate to close the hearing. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
I just want to mention that all of the updates, including these policies, were due to language changes from Florida statute, and I recommend approval as listed.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Mathias, second by Mr. Dodd. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0. All right, Superintendent, your report this evening.
Just a few things. So we had 2 letters of condolence that were sent since our last meeting. One to the family of Vicki Carpenter. She was the wife of Morris Carpenter Jr., an AC mechanic in our transportation department. So condolences to Mr. Carpenter and his family, and also to the family of Lisa Rock. So condolences to those families. Just wanted to give a big shout out and thanks to the Education Foundation for another prosperous Renaissance Fair. I don't have the total amount. I don't know, Ms. Luke, if you've heard from them recently as to the amount that they raised, but they did say that it was a record-setting year, and the turnout was also record-setting. So congratulations to them, and thank you for everybody that came out and volunteered. I know many of you were there, and so thank you for your service, and also thank you again to the Education Foundation and all those that came out to the event. For all the monies that will go directly back to support our schools and our students. Also, congratulations to all of our high school marching bands. They completed the season earlier this month by bringing home top awards as part of the FBA District 19 Marching Band Music Performance Assessment. The Umatilla Band earned an excellent rating, and the other 7 high schools earned a superior rating. So very proud of all of them. Congratulations. And then lastly, just a reminder that students are out next week for the Thanksgiving break, and district offices are closed next Thursday and Friday. And I want to wish everyone a very safe, relaxing Thanksgiving holiday.
Perfect. All right, board member comments. Dr. Luke.
I wanted to recognize Mrs. Cunningham for her chairmanship on the board. I love listening to you speak, interact with the public. It's always a pleasure to learn from you, and I think that the role as chairman allowed you to do that frequently, and you always just represent us in such a positive light. So it was a pleasure to watch you lead in that way for the last year. And then the last thing that I have is the Eustis High School State Champion 2024 softball team is having their ring ceremony at the December 6th basketball game versus South Sumter High School. Don't quote me on that one. Beal, although no longer coaching for Eustis High School, they asked me to invite you, superintendent and board, so I'm extending the invitation. I don't think the agenda has been set. I'm pretty sure there's 3 basketball shirts at halftime of boys varsity. So as we get closer to it, I will be sure to reiterate the details to you, but it's on Friday, December 6th, and they're really excited about that. So that's all I have.
Ms. Cunningham?
I just want to thank my fellow board members. You know, it's always nice to be a part of an organization, but it is really nice to be a part of an organization where you can genuinely say that you interact with and that working with them is a pleasure. So I'd like to tell the 4 of you and Superintendent Cornegie, you are a great bunch of people to work with. I am very blessed to have had that opportunity, and thank you. And Dr. Luke, thank you for your kind words. I do want to say one thing about the Renaissance Fair. I did volunteer at the entrance, and there were a lot of people. I've never pulled off so many ticket stubs, so I anticipate a very large income from that. And I'd like to wish everyone a very good and happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Dodd?
May I really quickly?
Dr.
Mr. Dodd,
Luke,
do you
go
mind?
ahead.
Dr. Johnson is at a speaker event, a speaker series event at Lake Sumter tonight. She did swing by my office before the meeting, so otherwise I'm sure she'd be here to share. I feel like I should tell you guys that she had a commitment, and I'm sure she's excited to share the amount raised by the Renaissance Fair, so.
Had she leaked the amount to you?
She did not, but you know what? I didn't even think to ask. But I'm sure she wants to share that, so I know it was a really great event, so thank you for reminding me of that.
Mr. Dodd?
It was indeed. I enjoyed my time volunteering there at the tomato throwing booth. Love every chance I get to be able to juggle tomatoes and toss them at some unsuspecting patrons of the fair. Anyway, yes, congratulations on a very successful year as chairman. I think it was just so refreshing.
Record-setting.
Record set. You did have the fastest meeting, yeah. First, and I can prolong these to ensure that Tyler doesn't
already doing that.
capture the record all the time. In the first meeting, want you to hold on to that record just a little bit longer. Although he's very efficient, you gotta watch out for him. So, anyway, yeah, I wanted to just echo Dr. Luke's comments. I think she captured them perfectly, and anyway, it's so well done, and the way light and the way you just interact with everybody with such a calm demeanor, and to come close if you don't actually observe your leadership. And I think that you are one of the hardest working people I've ever met in terms of doing your homework. So you ask some great questions, and anyway, I'm thankful for your leadership, Bill. We've seen your proven leadership over time, and so congratulations to you serving that vice chair role. I know it'll be once again another banner year for the school board. Anyway, so as much as as long as I've been on the board, I found this week, the rest of you, but I had a little bit of a learning this week in terms of something that I always thought the way it worked, but isn't exactly. And so I thought maybe I'd pass this on to you all in case you had the same wrong perception as I did. So when you look at the fiscal impact on this agenda here, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to be spending that amount. Okay, and there could be a couple of reasons. Well, one, I knew that maybe we're just, we're going to approve a certain threshold and just never get to it. Maybe we didn't have as much tree cutting as we thought we were going to have or what have you. But the other reason that this might not be the accurate number is that there might not actually be that much money in the line item in the budget for that particular purchase. So I'd asked this question through the context of some of the instructional materials. So thinking about science materials this year, I know that that's expensive, and I was having kind of nightmare flashbacks to 5 years ago when we couldn't afford to buy all the grade levels, right? And so as I was talking to Mr. Ward this week, just kind of expressing those concerns, I learned that we are approving the adoption, but not necessarily the fund. So even though we might see a fiscal impact here of $5 million, it doesn't mean we are authorizing the $5 million. That instead, there might only be $3 million in the instructional materials line, in which case then the district goes forth and buys that. So I guess my wondering is, how do we know if what we're seeing here is really what we're intending to spend? See, for instance, if I saw $5 million and I said, well, the instructional materials only has 3, I assume we're going to take the other 2 out of general funds, because historically, when that was a categorical line, it never had enough funding, right? It's just like transportation, right? They give us it costs $14 million, and if we only spend or they only give us 7, you're right, then we're not going to just run half the buses, right? So we're going to make that up for the general fund, right? So I assumed that this worked exactly the same way, but I guess it didn't. And so I guess my wondering on this is, I guess the way that you were supposed to figure that out is to also reconcile against the budget amendments, because that's a separate agenda item that we approve. But I feel like that is maybe kind of a bit of a cumbersome approach. So I don't know if I was just the only one who kind of was reading this wrong, or if you all had the same misconceptions than I did. But I guess I wanted to share that and just kind of think about how can we maybe fine-tune that moving forward. Like, maybe does the fiscal impact suggest that we don't actually have that much in the budget? So if the school board wants to dedicate $5 million to that, then something's got to give somewhere else. But I don't know. When I see that, like, there's an amount listed, I think that we're approving that much money, but that much money might not exist.
Right.
So,
Does it come back on the reconciliation reports on the monthly statements?
there would be an
But
amendment.
you would have to go back and
You'd have to
reconcile the two from the
That's right.
agenda to the,
And
right.
say, oh, there's a $2 million budget transfer
Right.
in this for instructional materials, or there's a $500,000 transfer for
Right.
tree cutting, or, whatever it is, like, I just don't know that any of us are diving into that level of detail, or to even have the knowledge to be able to break that down by cost center or by
Right.
job function or anything else.
I think it's an outstanding topic, but Mr. Ward's not here, but I
Yeah.
think we should have that discussion at a workshop.
Okay, that sounds great.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Because it's very legitimate.
All right, thanks.
'Cause, to be honest, when I voted, I thought I was voting for that money to be spent.
Right.
Well, and I thought there was a threshold. I always understood that, like, we were gonna approve this much, but we might not spend it, but not the other.
Right.
Not the opposite.
That much
No,
money
no, not the
might not
opposite.
exist in that line.
Right.
Okay.
Right, yeah.
All right, so yeah.
It's certainly worth having Mr. Ward speak to at a workshop.
He is a financial genius and well-known throughout the state, so I think we could certainly benefit from some instruction, because clearly I think we're all,
Great topic.
so, all right, thanks. Look forward to that at a future workshop. Brilliant idea. That is all.
Thank you, Mr. Dodd. Mr. Matthias?
First, I want to start with Mrs. Cunningham. Very steady hand this year. You had a contentious election you had to run through, but you handled it with grace and dignity, and most of all, integrity. And I always admire that about you. You have a calming voice. Like, in the midst of anything going on, you're able to calm the room since you've been on the board, and calm a board member, perhaps, or two. So you had a great year. And Mr. Brandenburg, I know you're going to do an awesome job. Awesome. So, and I'm proud to be your second. To the Renaissance Fair, to me, I was at the Blind Monk, and it was almost, I could imagine how a cruise ship, when it pulls into port, and 5,000 people jump off the ship, and the first thing they want to do is get a beer, because it would come in waves. It would just waves. As the buses came in, they would hit us, and it was, and when you work that hard, you don't realize that 5 hours passes like by the way. I'm certain it was a record year, and what a great way to send Carmen off. What a great way, and amazing leadership, and I'm sure we're going to honor her at some point. Also, there are unknown people, or not unknown, unnamed, all the volunteers, of course, but there's one in particular who I've never seen work as hard, and that is Jim Miller, former board member. He was out there every single day. He's searching for signs after the election for the next Renaissance Fair, and so from this dais, he has my absolute respect and admiration for his commitment to our kids. And if you ever want to get into a discussion, talk about world-class 1990 program, and he will share some wisdom about that. And that's all I have.
All right. Well, a lot of gratitude this evening. First and foremost, based on Mr. Dodd's comments on fiscal impact, there's no way I do as much homework as you do, but I'll be second to you in the homework category any day of the week. But seriously, the last 2.5 years or so have been such a pleasure with you guys, and Ms. Cunningham the last year. Serving next to you and watching you work has been a true privilege and an honor. Looking forward to the next year with you all and all the things that we'll do for students. I think that's been the greatest thing about serving on this board is we're all lockstep, focused on the same mission, not getting caught in the weeds or getting caught in the headlines, really just working, and really appreciate that about all of you guys. And lastly, of course, the obligatory Renaissance Fair comment. I also worked, I think it was Lord Edwards Pub, or maybe it was Drunk Monk. I gave out more bottles of mead than I thought was possible. How people drink that mead, I don't understand either, but kudos to Carmen and her team for another wonderful year. She finds more and more folks that love Renaissance Fairs every year, and I can assure you that'll be the only Renaissance Fair I ever go to, but raises a lot of money for our kids, so worth it in the end. With that, any other comments, any last words, board? All right, we are adjourned.